Good job. It's all you.
Thank you. Well, so today we're going to think about the future a little bit, and it's going to be very important that you think about what your life would be like if oil had never been discovered in the United States in the mid-1800s. Oil is in every part of our life and is very crucial to the way the developed world works. We require it for our food and our transportation. It's necessary in every good, plastic, everything, to keep all the parts running. And so, the problem is the end of cheap energy is predicted by quite a bit of scientific data to be coming soon. So today we're going to talk about peak oil and what the results, social fallout will be. And so we have something we all need to think about, because it's something that's going to affect all of our lives in the next couple of decades. And because we live in this United States and we're not as well educated on how to grow our own food and create our own energy locally, it's going to affect us pretty dramatically. So today, again, we're going to talk about peak oil a little bit and kind of a little thought experiment on what the future would be like if oil was all of a sudden ripped away from us. And so this first graph right here kind of just shows how, in these vertical blue lines, the discovery of oil has dropped in these last few years, while the production, the little orange snaking line, continues to raise about 2 to 3% annually. This lower graph points out that since the discovery back in the mid-1800s of oil, all the way to current times, there's been this huge ramping of need since we first really became industrialized in this nation. And so those come from several different groups: British Petroleum, the Association for the Study of Peak Oil and Gas, the American Petroleum Institute, and even the Energy Information Administration, which is one of kind of the groups that doesn't really totally agree with the peak oil phenomenon. And so what you're looking for is the fact that while production is still going up, we're missing out on quite a bit of discovery, and so we're dipping into our reserves. This is measured in gigabarrels, which is 1,000 million barrels, which the United States, according to British Petroleum data, we require about 20 million barrels a day. The world needs about 80 million barrels a day. And so it's quite a bit of oil that we go through, especially considering that it's continually raising. And so peak oil, which is one of two sides to the issue trying to figure out how much we've got left, is based off of qualitative and quantitative data. It was first created by Marion King Hubbert in 1954, when he first predicted that in 1970 the United States would hit peak oil, and he was correct. At the top of this graph you can see the peak in production, which is the highest number of barrels in a single year that the world or the United States can produce. And so the lower graph talks about, or displays how this theory originally was, not theory was originally created, but this is his original graph, which is a bell curve, and underneath it is the entire supply of world petroleum, and at the top of that is the peak point, and below that the world can never produce as much. When the United States peaked, there was global oil recession and quite a bit of problems, high prices and everything else. But we had Saudi Arabia and the other OPEC nations to go to meet the supply needs that we had. But when the world hits that peak, we won't have anywhere else to turn. So the reason it's so crucial is because the way we get all of our food is on these huge farms that require petroleum-based pesticides and fertilizers, and quite a bit of petroleum in the packaging and distribution. And so food would really run short if oil was to go away. This graphic right here kind of shows how the breakdown of oil goes, and quite a bit in transportation, chemicals, plastics, pretty much everything. Lubricants so that the cars can run and machines can keep going. And transportation here in the United States, we use about 70%. And so the World Energy Council expects that oil demand is projected to increase at about 2% annually. And it's going to go from 75 million barrels a day back in 2000 to about 114 million barrels a day in 2020. So what will happen when the world when the world requires a certain amount and the oil producers can only come up with 95% of that? Oil shock will occur, and prices will raise in speculation of how much energy is still below the ground. And this is going to affect every industry in this United States because of how essential petroleum is in every, again, part of it. And so then people will lose their jobs. There'll be a raise in crime and theft, probably substance abuse. So it's kind of a beginning of decay in society. The next thing is that we'll realize that we're geographically, confined in our area, and we're cut off from our family and friends, and we start to kind of feel claustrophobic. And so then, continuing on with this, the fifth part of this phase is really when things get bad. And a high school teacher of mine always, he printed this quote in my head: "Economic chaos breeds political radicalism." Mr. Bullion. And countries will start going out and starting a war to gain access to the last of the resources. And so this is kind of when about the 25th week, according to the World Without Energy Institute, who came up with this lesson plan, that food supplies are going to start running short, and people are going to have to rely on what's produced locally, which is going to overburden them, and there's going to be a lot of famine. But then, once people start starving is when they really start getting desperate, and so the United States will have to initiate a police state, and people are going to be locked down. And this is kind of in this one phase of this lesson plan. Really, they got a lot of great reaction from people about, what life would be like if there was curfews, because if you go out past 8, you're going to get killed for what little you may have for another person who's so impoverished. And finally, after this police state occurs, there's going to be communities that form in, around green areas, and those communities will be able to do what they can to support. But aside from that, anybody who doesn't really fit in and doesn't want to help, they're not going to really get to do too much. And this will be the beginning of a sustainable future in these communities. People will have to learn to grow their own food, produce their own energy locally, and create communities that are walkable and bikeable. So what are you going to do? Are you going to wait for this to happen? Or are you going to wake up and realize that the world you live in is an illusion, and that it's all because of this one simple resource? And if it was all gone, then not even all gone, halfway gone, that's when things are going to start happening. Problems arise. Oh, and to go back, the U.S. Department of Energy actually predicts that this is going to occur in 2016. So it's my life goal to kind of spread this message, and we have to realize that we have to be able to grow our own food, we have to create our own energy, and we have to all work together in communities to not only help change what our leaders' opinions are, to maybe start getting action, because a lot of people we're going to have to start working on this a decade before, or we're not going to solve this problem. And we're going to be stuck behind, and then it's just really going to be a lot of problems. It's going to be a lot easier to do it ahead of time and efficiently than, incrementally. So go out and learn some more, and thank you.